$29.98. Our famous standard My Pillow's only $14.98. Queens $18.98. King size only $1 more. Body pillows $29.98. Multi-use My Pillow 2.0s with pillowcase $9.98. Save $40 on our spring percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to mypillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all My Pillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard My Pillows absolutely free.
So anyway, yeah, we love Mike Lindell. So yeah, go to mypillow.com/Meri, MERI, right in the middle of America. And so as we come up to the July 4th weekend, I know that this is going to be an amazing week. And we've been seeing a lot of things that have happened with President Trump, with the bill passing the Senate, the big, beautiful bill, that passed the Senate. Now it has to go into the House. And there's a lot of breakthroughs that we're seeing, but we're in the midst of a war. Juan, good to have you on the program today. How are you?
Good. Couple quick things. By the way, I was traveling, and we met with folks that flew up to meet us from out of the country where we were at. And the wife, I happened to see them as they were checking into the hotel, and they both have a pillow under their arm. And these are fairly well-to-do folks. They flew in on their personal jet, let's put it that way. And the one thing we were laughing about is they were My Pillow pillows. And they says, no, whatever you think of Mike Lindell, he sure knows how to make a pillow.
Well, actually, Juan, I think he had a dream. I kind of know his story. He's got a book called From Crackhead to CEO. And I think God gave him a dream. And he made that pillow, and but he was addicted to crack. But he was, I guess, a functioning crack addict. And one day, he had a My Pillow commercial, probably in a local market, probably in the Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities market. And he had an infomercial and about his pillow. And literally 4 people right in a row that night called him up and said, you know what? I don't want your pillow, but God told me to call you. He gave him a word. One guy had a dream. Another lady had a word of God from him. And after the 4th one, right in a row, every hour in the hour, he literally got down on his knees and he said, God, he said, you know that I'm addicted to crack. Please take this away. And if you do, I'll serve you for the rest of my life. And when he got up on his knees, he went to bed. And when he woke up, never did crack again. Totally delivered. So,
well, let me just add this. I was at a location in northeast of Los Angeles. Trying to think of the name of town now. And so I was at this particular location and meeting with other folks. And one of the people pulls me aside at one point in time because I had a call that involved Lindell. And so he knew that, and he pulls me aside and says, hey, can you put me in touch with him? Would he sign a book for me? And I said, I'm sure he would. If I ask him, I'm sure he'll sign me a book. And I have people around me that talk to Mike, every day, but I, don't myself as a general rule. So anyway, because we're kind of on different paths on a lot of things, but we also cross paths on a number of things. Anyway, so he says, yeah, because, he saved my life. I'm like, he did? How did he do that? He says, well, Christ saved my life. But Mike Lindell, he had heard a radio interview. I think it was Coast to Coast. And this person was a very, very well-to-do guy in the pharmacy industry and distribution like that. He sold his company just before COVID and for very big money to a huge retailer. And so he was pretty fat with cash. But the problem was he was totally addicted to drugs and multiple kinds, not just one. And he heard that interview, and it gave him enough hope that he was able to break off all the drugs. He took like a year and just got himself cleaned out completely, and then became also a Christian. And he said it was that interview with that he heard of Lindell that gave him the hope that he could even break this, because when he sold his company, part of, as I recall how he was saying it, he was selling it because he knew that his kids wouldn't be able to run it, and he didn't think he was going to live much longer because he couldn't break the drug addiction that he had, even though here he is running a huge multi-million dollar company. And he literally came all the way back. That meeting I had with him was about 2 years ago. And I did get a signed book for him and send it off to him. And so, I would translate that back even to this audience. Oftentimes you just don't know how stuff that you're doing may affect people in disparate places. And so being ready with the word at the right time. And I think that was the other thing. It wasn't just one person. Once this person started down the path, then God put other people in his path, and it helped him to do the walk to get out of this. When somebody's that messed up, even if you stop the addiction, there's other things in your life that are screwed up, relationships,
Mhm.
50, 100 different things. And so you're doing triage and damage control on so many fronts. And so oftentimes somebody, when they start down this path, it's 2, 5, 20 people that each have a piece as they work through these details to, save their life, and that's what this audience is all about. I was talking with someone just this morning. We had breakfast that many people in this audience would know the name of, not super famous, but not famous. And in the course of that conversation, he asked me, do you think we're through the worst of it yet? And I says, no, not by a long shot. I personally believe still that we have a gripping moment ahead of us, that there's a near-death experience for America, that it will be as close as the bullet for President Trump, or bullets. By the way, there's been some tremendous work done by a group that's releasing their video on the 13th of July, and I hope everybody here will watch that. What they did is they used a very specific type of camera system that is used at crime scenes, and did a very exhaustive examination of where the person was killed near President Trump, as well as the trajectory of the bullet that hit President Trump's ear, and came to a very solid, I think, conclusion that absolutely there was more than one shooter at the Butler event. And so why that's important is because, who had the authority, who is in on the scam to try to sell us that there was one shooter, and was the intent all along to sacrifice that shooter to cover a larger conspiracy? And is there still deeper conspiracies yet to be exposed here in the country? So with that in mind, we're still in a fairly serious situation. I think that we still have some kind of a very dark event out here that will be a near-death experience for America, that will be like what happened with President Trump. His is a preface to the rest of us as a nation.
Mhm.
Uh, very symbolic, and that, but for the grace of God, we as a nation would not survive some event that's cascading towards us right now. And when is that event? There's lots of people speculating about stuff going on over the 4th of July. I don't believe that's at all it. We're going to own that period. The fireworks are celebrating where we're going, but there's some fireworks coming. But most of what people are projecting and calling for is nowhere near what I think is out there looming for us. And I could be wrong.
Well, and that was July 13th, of course, last summer. And I remember I was going up to Harvest Rock Church. There was an event going on. I remember getting the texts and calls about what happened. And I've interviewed several people, including Derek Johnson, Mike King, and other ones, that they believe that that was a setup event, that was, I don't believe that, but there's a lot of people.
No. That was not a Trump setup event. That is a
I
false
agree.
story. I'm not even wasting time on that. That was not
I
President
agree.
Trump setting up America with a scam about him getting shot. That's a falsehood. And,
Right.
and I don't, from my perspective, I think it's a way of slamming President Trump, as though he would even participate in that type of a falsehood towards America. Not happening.
Yeah, I agree with you, Juan. So as we come up to 4th of July weekend, and of course, as you said, that at the beginning of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, that was just the beginning of the war. And so we have a long way to go. I'm in agreement with you on that.
Well, let me just add this one thought. We have a churched audience here. If it were true that President Trump was in on that falsehood, then what President Trump said on Inauguration Day, where he gave credit to God for saving his life for the purposes ahead, was all show, all theater. It means everything Trump is a show. Everything Trump is a falsehood, that there is no divine aspect of intervention to save Trump, because it was all a show. So then I put to this audience, okay, pray about it. Do you think that Trump is insincere? Do you think he's a liar on these things? Do you think he is setting you up? There's certainly people that believe that. Or is that a lie of the devil? Christ didn't die on the cross. He was alive. They saved him, and it's all theater. Okay. I'd put it in the same category of a falsehood, because the truth is so, if it's true, if Trump was in fact saved from this attack by as close a margin as actually occurred, then it's hand of God. So you have to decide, and you can pray about it and come to your own conclusions. If people want to believe a certain thing, okay, I'm not, you're free to do that. But I would personally, I would say that that's not just a slight on Trump. That is a backhanded attempt by the devil himself to diminish an act of God to protect the person that is coming in as God's chosen man to be his instrument in the process of saving America. It's as much a slap on God's hand itself as it is directed towards President Trump. And so I'm very comfortable that, yes, there was more than one shooter, and that there was theater going on, and that there was government involvement in the lead up to the event and the cover up, but that wasn't involving Trump, and it was a very real thing. Do you believe for 1 second that Trump would have participated in an event where a fellow American was killed You don't think that firefighter's a real person? You think he's living somewhere under another name and the whole family's just acting, a person that lived in that community for decades? I'm not buying that for anything. Okay, it's not that, it's not true. And so those that are wanting to say that, I'm not going to stop them from saying it. They're, okay, but they can say anything they want. When you do the analysis, what you're really asking me to do is participate in a deception that if it is a true event and you're trying to deflect and deceive, well, that's from the devil himself. He's the father of liars. So if you're, and don't tell me you're a big Trump supporter and everything else if you're going to go along with that, because at the end of the day, if that were true, then Trump is the greatest deceiver of all, greater of a deceiver than the Obama, Clinton crowd, anything else. And he's just part of the most evil cabal ever. And yes, the country is toast, and you better dig deeper in your bomb shelter and get everything else, because we are then done. God's hand is not in this. God's not taking care of us, and it's over, because all of these frauds will come to an end. And that would be the greatest of them all. So if you believe that, okay, but I don't. I don't believe that rings true with me, and I don't think it makes sense. Not knowing President Trump, no prayer,
I don't
not a
believe that
chance.
either,
He's
Juan.
not that guy. He is not that guy.
Yeah, no, I don't believe it either. But just like Nino and others have people on their show with different opinions, these people, they can have their opinion, but I don't believe it. I believe it was a sovereign miracle of God that happened, just like you look at in 1776 when they signed that Declaration of Independence. At the end of 1776, which we've talked about on the program, the Christmas Day miracle, when General Washington, of course, crossed over the Delaware in the Durham boats. And the next day, the surprise, of course, the Hessian mercenary army. And that was the shot in the arm they needed. And then going into 1777 at Valley Forge, where the angel came to his office and said, "Son of the Republic, listen and learn the three perils that's going to come upon the nation or the union." And he said the third would be the worst. So I believe that we're at that time of that third peril. And that's why I
and by the way, when Washington went over the Delaware and caught the Hessians by surprise, and then a second attack on other of the troops, they didn't expect them to come get them, and they got uniforms and everything else. Remember, these guys were summer warriors without even decent shoes. They started the fight in the summer. But there was more than one miracle of surprise. They didn't expect these guys to come back and do a double tap, hit them twice. They got everything. And of course, a lot of the people, the end of their consignment to be soldiers, their commission ended at the end of the year. And so this was the last days that Washington could use them for something. And it was a hand of God thing, and the river. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but amazing stuff.
Well, and of course, because I've studied this, and I'm sure you have no more than I do. But remember Common Sense, the writer Thomas Paine,
of course,
Washington literally had them read that Common Sense, and it stirred them on to cross over and to fight. That's where the pen is mightier than the sword. And right now, like that famous quote, "These are the times that tried men's souls." I think Thomas Paine was the one who wrote that, coined that. So we're in that same time right now. Only this war, we can't see who we're fighting. It's not like with the Union Army or with the Revolutionary War.
Well, hold on a second. You said something very important there. When they crossed the Delaware, there was a storm, and the storm was blowing snow, and it was low to the ground, and there was fog. There was all sorts of obstacles. They couldn't see, but neither could the enemy clearly what was going on. When they got to the outpost of the Hessian army, the weather cleared just as they came into those hours, they overtook the guard post because they didn't see him coming, and then got set up. And just as the early rays of morning dawn were coming on and guys were getting ready and coming out, hitting the head and getting ready to go, that's when they started the attack with cannon right down the main drag. And so having an obscured situation worked both ways, but in his thing, they took advantage of that to do what they had to do. So
well, and they had to march 9 miles once they crossed over the Delaware. So,
in a snowstorm, in
yeah,
6 inches or 8 inches of snow. Yes, that's
without
exhausting.
having
Think of going
the right shoes, many of them, as you just said.
right. So pretty epic.
So everyone that's listening, we're in a situation that it's been tough. And God, the other day when I was praying, the Lord said to me, gird up the loins of your mind. He said, we're in a war, and the war isn't our battle, it's God's, but we literally have to put on the armor of God. And we're in a war, we're in a storm. And we have to speak to the mountain, just like Jesus, when we crossed over and they were all like, "What, Jesus, wake up, we're in a storm, we're perishing." And he looked at him and he said, "Oh, you have little faith. Speak to the storm, speak to the mountain." The remnant, I believe, Juan, it's a remnant, like Gideon's army. So we're in this place. A lot of people are complacent. A lot of people think, oh, well, Trump's in, it's all good. But we can't have that attitude. We're right now at the beginning of the war. And
Yep.
I do believe there's some stuff that's getting ready to happen. With current events.
Well, let me just help you here. Let's move forward with some important stuff. I was asked not to give too many specifics on some of this, but I've spoken to your audience before about the fact that we have the people here on U.S. soil in protective custody who actually engineered the theft of 2020, the election. And I've mentioned, for example, that the Cuban component in this as the minders of these technicians who stole the election, the people out of Venezuela. So I put that out in the public already many, many times over, not just the last few months, but the last several years, by the way. And Trump just yesterday, because of things that have happened even in the last week with new information, put the screws to Cuba about everything moving around in and out of Cuba, our sanctions and stuff like that. Why? Because we're getting ready to reveal what in the world really happened. And even the stuff towards China. China was the one that was controlling the various individuals as a group in flipping the 2020 election. So your audience here, there's a few audiences, I've spoken to them. There's been a little bit out there otherwise. My buddy Patrick Byrne, beautiful, important stuff there. Do not think for an instant that what's coming is a year or two out. Okay? Disclosures are coming. It's going to be epic. And it's going to, in other words, you want to talk about this? You got friends, they don't want to hear it? Okay. But if there's people that do want to hear it, they're going to be looking to people like your audience who've taken a stand already on what's going on, and they can blow them off. They can act, the neighbors, the relatives, the friends. They will be forced to acknowledge that what we've asserted happened is at the very least now front and center in the news, and it's not going away. In fact, it's going to continue to build. It's the most important story for the rest of this administration as a broad overall story. Think about this. In fact, I was talking with somebody else's audience. Everybody here would know the name this morning for particular legal things that we're putting in place. That everybody will go, yeah, okay, I helped, I was there, okay, I got it. Think about what I've said before. China, as an act of war, got involved in the U.S. elections multiple times, but the high point was the theft of the 2020 election and then putting Biden into office. And so Biden being in office, he was an agent of a foreign power, but it's a little more involved than just that, because if Biden wasn't coherent enough to even use the auto pen. Look, he's the one. Remember, we had the very early when Biden first came into office, in the first day or two, he's walking into the White House, and we're listening to conversations that he's having because he's so incoherent allegedly, and he says, "I've been wiped." What? Somebody's talking in his ear because he has an earpiece in, right? And I've been wiped. Well, if somebody else has to wipe his butt because he can't do it himself, how in the world was he going to run the pen or the auto pen? Somebody else is doing this, okay? And so if China engineered and stole the vote and was controlling what was going on in the White House remotely, then even every bill, every action, every appointment to certain offices was not being done or signed to by Biden. There is critical stuff that's coming. And the implications of the fact that China engineered this and then Biden wasn't even coherent. That's why there's been such a fuss being made about who knew what within the Biden administration about Biden's incompetency. What did they know and when did they know it? And what impact does that have on all sorts of things, including stuff that he allegedly signed? Very serious stuff, not just a little bill here or there. And when did that begin? The war within that realm is about to go incandescent. Now, the reason I say that, in part, I've said it before, but it's coming to a head fairly quickly. But what has Trump been doing? Since he took office, day one, he's cut off the money supply for a lot of these anti-Trump things. Then he has been going after a lot of the people and players that are causing chaos around the world, even to wars all over the world. Okay, the deaths. He may not have stopped the Ukraine war, even though he offered so that they could stop the killing from both sides. But he's kind of brought that out in the open to a head, to where both sides know we're not going to stay in there very much longer. They got to figure it out pretty quick. Same thing with the Iran thing. We're bringing it to a head. And why? Because Trump doesn't want America or the world distracted by those players who would like us to go after the next shiny object. What Trump has been doing is bringing things to a head. This is the 5D chess. So that from a media standpoint, even look at the Ukraine war, because they brought it to a head, even if they haven't solved it. How much do you hear it every single hour on the news, the latest move, even with big, huge moves, taking out half of the Russian nuclear airborne defenses and attack system, and the drones just wiping out all sorts of things. Doesn't even hardly hit the news right now because you brought it to a head. It's sort of off the burners at the front burner. Same thing with Gaza. Same thing with Iran. Same thing with Congo. 10 million people dead in the last 5 to 7 years. Rwanda next door, it's only 1 million. Okay, in the same time period. It's only 1 million. It's only 1 million.
Wow, so Congo had
They've
10 times.
agreed. So, but the point is that getting those things addressed so that these globalista can't raise them at a critical moment. Why? Because when we get to the election stuff and the stolen election 2020 for us, the people that did this, that we have in custody, that have brought their evidence with them and their testimony, those people, their testimony is they stole the leadership not in 5 or 10 or 30 countries, 71 countries plus the United States. Over half the population of the planet is living under the leadership of people who aren't the will of the people in those countries. So when we started attacking election frauds across the world, we're going to get ours sorted out, and then we're going out and we're helping all of our brothers. We're not going to be our brother's keeper. We're going to be our brother's brother and help them get their elections sorted out in their own countries. That will be the front page news. And these globalista will not have the ability to pull us off center, off point on that subject matter, as people are going to Gitmo and within the U.S. Through the justice system. They're not going to have that card to play. But before we get there, there's a few more things that have to be dealt with so that we aren't easily distracted in the most important thing. The most important thing that Trump will have done during his entire time in office, in public life, when this is all said and done, the most important thing that he will have done for the world and for America is to return an honest vote of the peoples here and across the world. It will be his crowning achievement. It will be him, what he will be remembered for. Forget the bullshit, kill the bull. That's why I use the Megador theme. And the charging bull is election fraud. You could counterfeit money in all the countries of the world. It wouldn't be as valuable as counterfeit votes.
Well, and that means, Juan, going back to, paper ballots.
Hand count, paper ballot, counted where cast, 1 day vote. All of the reporting, everything else. I had my team put together a proposed executive order for a hand count paper ballot, 17 pages long. It's pretty extensive. It's very detailed. It has to be that long to get through all of the minutia. In fact, I just had a call on that earlier today with very key people within the administration, examining features of that. It will be a template for whatever is signed by Trump. And it covers things better. I was going through it, and they were looking at other proposed things. I said, well, but that's why this section says this. Go to the team, and we have the best people on this stuff, I think, in the world right now. And so they're looking at it, and I believe it for various reasons, Trump will sign some variation of that proposed executive order early in the fall. And but it is a fun detail. The first executive order that Trump signed concerning election matters was Executive Order 107, signed on March 25th of 2025 at 107 in the afternoon.
That's funny.
and our team has really put together something amazing together, and it is being reviewed. And you can find it online. It's out there. I'll tell you another secret. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we are now a week away, give or take a day, from another matter beside the executive order uh, with absolutely the top technologists on planet Earth. I mean, the best. These are people that, if aliens landed on the front lawn of the White House and started pulling out their barbecues and we're going to camp out, bring the kids in, uh, they'd be the ones that would have to go address it to figure out how we're going to respond to it within the right technological areas. These are the people that build, manage everything, the most advanced technology in the U.S. arsenal. And they have looked at the election system as it is. How can it be corrected and modified? Can it be corrected and modified? Does any system exist? And then what's the path forward for 2026? That report will be stunning. And there's a public side and there's a private side that is classified only for the president's eyes and whoever the president decides to share it with. That's coming out in just a week. It will lay the groundwork for why we have to have the executive order hand count paper ballot counted where cast one day vote, blah, 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 from a technical side. And there's nobody in this world, on this planet, that's going to be able to shoot holes in what they have to say. It's going to be epic. It's coming. It's almost here. And they've been working on it for quite some time.
Would that be a state by state issue, or would that be
the only way that it can be implemented is from the federal side. Trump can order that for federal elections, federal offices, that it must be a hand count paper ballot. The states can do whatever they want within their own statewide elections, but this is an important point. He can also cut off federal matching money. He can also say we're not going to finance any of the rest of it. And then, by the way, at the state level, how are the citizens going to feel if the systems, the machines, are not safe to be used for the federal ballot? What makes you think that they should be used still for the state stuff? And are the states going to do a two-tiered election system? Well, for state stuff, we can vote 30 days in advance. We can blah, 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 whatever, mail in, drop box, whatever. But for the federal stuff, it has to be follow these rules that would be outlined coming by executive order. Because why could Trump do this? And here's even from the legal side, okay? On the legal side, first off, these judges, these district court judges that were interfering with stuff all across the country, the Supreme Court just decided the other day that they don't have the legal right to interfere in stuff all across the country. If they want to do a decision, it's within the district where the thing is brought, and they can make their own decision. But the Supreme Court just put a complete end to all of these national legal pushes to interfere with Trump by these district court judges. They just got shut down and kicked in the ass hard with the
that was a huge win.
It's a huge win. But so now you go to the election stuff. Here's the other thing. From what you're going to hear, your audience is getting something that nobody else is hearing right now, precisely. I'm giving you a heads up, okay? You can take it or leave it. I don't care. Here's what the deal is. The federal side of this is that a stolen election, false ballots getting into the system and being counted, interference in the way the ballots get in or counted, etc. That's a national security matter. Do you think the fact that Biden got into office under falsehoods and became or the image of Biden and the people behind him became the functional president / commander in chief of America, is, something that should be dealt with at the Justice Department or, in some district court. And we should have to go. We've been blocked this whole time from getting into any serious, real um, court cases. People think that all these court cases that, Obama was found to be okay to be president, that Biden was okay to be president. No, it wasn't. The courts blocked
Well,
us.
and
We never
these
actually
were
got real hearings.
well, and these were judges one that Obama implemented and put in place, correct? A
Well,
lot of these
some of
judges.
them are others. It's I won't just put it there, but I will tell you this: that at the end of the day, when you have a national security issue, especially in light that we've now got people being briefed in the very highest places concerning exactly what has been brought to us on the 2020 vote, it'll be undeniable. Everybody has looked at it, even Democrats that have just, okay, yeah, you got it. Thinking in office Democrats, by the way. They're not arguing on the facts of what we have here, but I'm sure some will show up somewhere along the line as this becomes more public over the next many weeks. But the important feature here that everybody needs to understand is that it's a national security issue. So when Trump issues an executive order that for all federal elections, every federal office, it must be certain things: hand count, paper ballot, counted where cast, 1 day vote, blah, blah, blah. When he issues that executive order, no person of any party is going to be able to go to any court in America and counter it. Why? Because he won't sign that executive order as the president of the United States. He signs it as the commander in chief. And what's part of the rest of the issue? We weren't attacked by some Al Capone group. We weren't attacked all by itself by some, James Bond mega group working in the background solely. We were attacked in a nation state act of war. A stolen election is an act of war. It's categorized in the law of war manual as a weapon of mass destruction to steal the vote, because it can cause massive death and destruction. And that's exactly what happened. That's why you have Ukraine war, Yemen war, continuation of the Congo war, etc. So with that in mind, when Trump signs that, he's doing it as the commander in chief because we're under attack and we have the proof that China did it. That's not a policing action. There's no court in the country that will have the legal authority to challenge the commander in chief on a matter of national security. Won't happen. And Congress can't even interfere with what he does in that period because of what's going on. It's not going to happen. In fact, the reverse is going to happen. Congress is going to be embarrassed. Remember the Brunson case, and we're not done.
Well, and Juan, wasn't that executive order, from what I recall, Executive Order 13848, that if there was proof to be a stolen election, that election would be nullified or not?
Yeah, there was a timing thing. And so without getting into other stuff that's happening right this second, there's multiple fronts to attack this issue. Some from within 13848 and other orders around that, and some other stuff. So there's the fight's on. Within the public, within this group, what I want you to think about, those are conversations we're going to get to have a whole bunch of, but think about the people that are going to be exposed in the course of this, not just business people or politicians in America, but from a global side. And they don't want that heat. That's why Trump's clearing the decks and reducing the footprint for distraction that could come from these events all around the world on multiple fronts. Even taking care of the arms deal with the Saudis and Qatar. Why? Because that means they're not going to do an arms deal with China or Russia. And those issues are reduced, and they're going to be buying those arms with maintenance contracts for the next 20, 30 years. So they're not going to attack Israel. Getting Iran nipped in the bud, and all of the sleeper cells here in America, individuals and like that, start attacking that issue. We're not waiting for them to strike. We're going after them hard. And by the way, a huge number have been picked up with assistance by Iranian citizens working inside of Iran, most all of them Christians, by the way, to target and locate individuals here in America that may have been individual targets towards us, including, for the 4th of July weekend and all that stuff. But here is my concern. It's part of the reason why Trump had the security fencing put up around the White House and the Treasury. And he's within the administration going after Powell. He's keeping the interest rates super high, up there at 4.5%. Sweden's down at 0.25%. Other countries like Japan, 0.75%, whatever. It's asinine. It's a tax on America. And it doesn't anticipate some of the things that are coming and going on right now that we have great knowledge on. So, but why do I say that? And Trump is being pretty verbose. When Trump starts addressing an issue, you got to pay attention. So the dollar's been weakening compared to gold and silver. It's on a trend line, and it has a lot to do, by the way, with the way the Federal Reserve is operating and the money printing and all the money that's been printed. There is turmoil that needs to be gone through. It's pent up, it's waiting. So just like bringing things to a head with Ukraine, the Mideast, Central Africa, look at what DeSantis did in the last week. He built a detention center capable of handling thousands of people a day.
You made alligator Alcatraz?
That's right, to get them out of the country and to not just take care of the problem in Florida, but to assist with other states also. And it's not lost on him that, by the way, it's within an easy hop, skip, and a jump of Gitmo. Okay. And why is that? I've talked about it numerous times over the last several years. We have over 700,000 sealed indictments in the federal court system. Every one of those indictments can have up to 99 people on them. Now, they don't have, some of them are just an individual one. Most of them have multiple people on it. You're actually talking on the low side, 700,000. Some of them may be duplicate in different areas of the country, but most of them, the real number of people affected by those indictments is millions. And a lot of that is people targeted to move them out of the country for various immigration issues. The process is on getting ready to do that. Well, why is that important? Again, because that's another thing that needs to be moved off the table. Why? Because we're preparing for the fight over what in the world happened coming up to and after 2020, and what are the implications and how are we going to address that? And that fight is the monster mother of all fights. The people who are going to be under attack in this are lots of them internal in very high office. Some of the offices you've never, ever even heard of. Shadow government, I've talked about it before. And then in other countries, we're going to war with some other countries over this, what that was done. There's going to be war crime trials on a Nuremberg type level before it's over. So what would be the way that people at that level would respond? They're going to come after us economically. They're going to come after us in the markets. They're going to come after us financially. And there's some turmoil ahead. Now, ultimately, the dollar is going to do great. And there's going to be things done within the dollar treasury constitutional system that will stabilize that. The markets are going to do great, especially within certain industries. And the market, the stock market's going to go up radically, in part because the dollars that you'll be buying in the market initially will be cheaper, but will strengthen it. We have something that's coming. But why am I saying that? It's all over the map. The responses are going to be all over the map because it has to be. They're going to make a move. We're going to make a move. They're going to make a move globally. BRICS and banks in London and all that. During that turmoil, it could be a little dicey in a lot of different places. If you're not in that mode to dodge and dive and jump and do whatever, the stable island in the course of that is going to be the metals, constitutional money. And gold and silver coin is ideal. And just because
now, Juan, you're actually got a
trade,
new coin. You're coming out with a new coin, correct?
In fact, we're going to announce that over at Jen's site and over at Gumroad even later today, which by the time you get this show posted, it should be up over there. And the new coin, I think, is epic. It's very cool. So for 2025, it's the 2025 coin. And so we'll have that available to people if you want to go over to Gumroad or over to Jen's site. And then Jen has also, by the way, her cookie contest, the 107 cookie contest, which I'm very excited about. So it's just for the month of July. And if people have an idea, she's got pretty good instructions over there. And so we're anxious to see what people come up with and gonna have some fun with that. So and by the way, there's high drama ahead in July. So being able to take a deep breath, enjoy the cookie contest like that, and then we'll announce winners October 17th. But everybody needs to take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. The Chicken Little, the 4th of July, bullshit. Take a deep breath. There is some dark stuff coming for the country, and some of it it's not right away. There's a build up towards it, and the stage isn't fully set yet. But will we get through it? Absolutely. This audience should be the most understanding, hopeful, whatever of any audience in America, that the devil will not prevail. And we will not live in fear, because the God whom we serve knows each and every one of us individually, right down to the number of hairs on their head. And we're not pulling our hairs out over what's about to happen. God has us. God has this situation. The devil himself might personally be trying to guide that lead at the president, but to pull it off. Okay.
Well,
And all his minions.
even if we go back to what the angel told General Washington at Valley Forge, the very last thing, if people want to research this, the angel says that nothing will prevail against the Union. It basically was saying that it will look bad, but that the Union would prevail. So as we come up to this 4th of July weekend, I want people to remember that no matter how dark it gets, as long as it says in 2 Chronicles 7:14, the key thing is if God's people will humble themselves, pray, seek his face, and lastly, turn from their wicked ways, then the promise is I will hear from heaven and heal your land. So Juan, you've got an event coming up this weekend on the 5th of July that you wanted to bring up.
We have an event. I know, 4th of July for people like that. We have an event on the vote integrity stuff. I've got it's a relatively small event, so you'll actually get to hang with some pretty cool people there at the Ahern Hotel in Vegas, which is about 3/4 of a mile north of the Trump Hotel. And I've got great speakers coming in and some people zooming in, but in fact, Trennis Evans is meeting me there. Lloyd Brunson is coming in, names that this audience would know well. Bannon's going to be zooming in. There's a senator coming. There's a couple different people. You'll get a chance. Mark Cook, the Hand Count Roadshow, who's doing just an amazing job. Do some demonstrations there, and it's just for the day. It's like Twix, okay, and we're keeping it simple, and you even get lunch at the Ahern. And by the way, Mr. Ahern has been one of the, when we count all the guys, a lot of guys talk a lot, that are well-to-do and stuff like that. He's been 100% just an ace of a guy all the way through, never wavered once on any of the events when other places wouldn't even let us have space. And they've got plenty of space there for us to be able to do stuff like this. I've had the constitutional sheriffs and, probably, I don't know, a dozen events out there that we've had to use the Ahern and other groups that we've helped get in there. It's a great location and has plenty of space for us to stretch out and do something like this. And we're going to have a great event. That's the 5th of July. If you're anywhere in the area, come on over. In fact, we'll be there, 4th and 5th for that. So chances are, you'll bump into some of the people there. Low key, relaxed, can have a great time. So if you got anybody there in the audience and, plus you're in Vegas, you think 4th of July is going to be fun in Vegas? Come on over. It'll be great.
Yeah, well, then there's another event too that actually, Juan, you'll be at, I'll be at as well. It's coming up on July 15th, July 15th through the 18th. Let's put that flyer up really quick. It's Gideon's Army, and Juan will actually be there.
Yep.
I've been there. I was there last year, and this was amazing what happened there. And Juan will be there, and it's going to be an amazing time. And Juan, we were just talking before we started the broadcast, but I was just up in a little bit north of Sacramento at the Church of Glad Tidings, Yuba City. But let me say we raised $2 million. I was one of the speakers. Laura Logan was there, Kathy O'Brien. We had Chris Burkard. We had Craig Salmon Sawyer. So many different people there. And this whole issue with trafficking is a big deal. That's why they opened up the borders, and how they really make their money, the deep state, the cabal, is through the trafficking of children and what they're doing. And so we're all standing up. But one of my messages that you can hear on my Rumble channel on the Sunday service, God gave me a whole message about Gideon's Army. And that, of course, the story of Juan. And for those of you watching, it was 7 years that they were fighting. Midian would come in and would literally everything that they harvested, the Midianites would steal. And there came a point that God sent the prophet that warned them, you have not listened to my voice, and and literally corrected them. And that's when the angel came to Gideon. And the first thing the angel had Gideon do was to tear down the altars of Baal and Asherah where they were sacrificing children to. And so, but it was a showdown. So we're at a showdown right now, people. So even the name Gideon's Army, actually, you probably know the story, Juan. Jerry Foley was telling me about it today. When they left, the Mayflower left England, there was another ship, right, that was there. I didn't know
this. There was 3 ships. Yep, there was 3 ships.
Yeah, so tell the story, because I didn't know that story. And,
well, when they got to the coastline, 2 of the ships decided that they weren't going to stick around there at Plymouth and continued on. And the ship that stayed there at Plymouth, the captain, and then the head of the pastor that stayed there on the ship, was looking through the notes, or looking through the scriptures, and he noted in his log, in the ship's log, that the people that were there on the ships were abandoned like Gideon. and his army, and they felt that they were like Gideon's army. And so when they landed at Plymouth and then made covenants with God, those early pilgrims, the first ones, they were noted as being like unto Gideon's army. And this was something that wasn't known. You know, we've done the events there at, this is the 5th year in a row. I think only missed 1 year because of something else that was scheduled. But we didn't know that that was in the ship's log concerning that first group that landed at Plymouth. And when you look at the scriptures, one of the interesting things is that God made covenants with his people. And one of the covenants is that as part of God honoring the covenants with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he would bestow wealth on them as a sign of his covenant, those that were covenanting with him. And that would be one of the recognizable marks that they were children of the covenant. And so if you think of the moments when this Gideon's army of pilgrims landed at Pilgrim Rock and made covenants with God concerning building this outpost out. Because remember, the first settlers were there for religious freedom. They didn't want to be ruled by the bloodlines. They wanted to enjoy the fruits of their own labors and not have to give it to others just because of their birth. They didn't want to be slaves anymore. And so, of course, from that humble beginning, this whole great nation, this amazingly wealthy nation. But the devil's going to attack. And the fight that Trump is preparing us for beyond all these external fights is the financial one that's about to hit. And he's getting us in place. That's why he put the stuff around the Treasury. He didn't put it around the Federal Reserve building, didn't put it around the IRS building. He put it around the Treasury because that's constitutional. And he's sending a symbol or a signal to everybody, pay attention, pay attention. We're getting prepared for something that's coming. That's up there as much to protect the building as it is to send a message to the American people and to any of our enemies who think they're going to attack us. We're going to defend ourselves. So with that in mind, though, as we move back to, Trump's going to defend the Constitution. Right there, Article 2, Section 10 of the Constitution. What is money? How is it minted? What's constitutional money? Trump's going to go back to constitutional money. He's going to bring the country, the republic, back to constitutional law and authorities. And
also back to the gold standard, right, where it used to be.
Remember, it's not just a gold standard; it's gold and silver. The the more mercurial moves faster, and the more suppressed one. Look, the enemies of the country are more concerned about silver than they are gold. That's why we called it a silver dollar. Okay, and that is much more for actual transactions. Gold is more of a store of wealth. Both of them are a store of wealth, but the more transactional, mercurial of the two, that is for broader use and holding, is silver. And it's also the one that's been the most suppressed. So when the restraints are coming off, it's the one that goes up farther. And by use and other things, it's also the one that's been more suppressed. And they'll both move. And gold is the store of wealth. Silver is the moving wealth that's closer to the people for various reasons. But anyway,
and Juan,
know what's coming.
I remember my dad used to have these Kennedy silver dollars, with John Kennedy on it. So that was, I don't know how long ago, but I remember him.
Well, the 64 silver dollar, Kennedy silver dollar, that was the end of real silver in our
Mhm.
coinage. And then they began debasing it after that, putting in a portion of filler. And by the way, Kennedy uh, put out in the year of his presidency the silver notes. So they were the Federal Reserve, and the Treasury notes, silver Treasury notes, were a receipt for actual silver that existed inside the Treasury system. When Kennedy was killed, in the first week after Johnson took power, I think it was 4 days after, he reversed that silver Treasury note. And then the Treasury agents went out and tried to find every possible silver Treasury note in existence and redeem them back and take them out of circulation. And that protected, again, the Federal Reserve. Trump, you just have to think about where Trump's going. When Trump showed up at the White House on his first day after the inauguration in 2017, Melania was wearing a Tiffany blue dress, and they had packages for the Obamas that were Tiffany blue.
Yeah.
The symbology was they were coming back and picking up where President Kennedy had been stopped. And what was the rest of the issue? Kennedy only started the silver Treasury receipt or note. He intended to move the operations from Federal Reserve to the Treasury, back to the Treasury, the way where they were supposed to be as part of his second administration, and he was going to do it hard. So if Trump's back to pick up where Kennedy left off, the main move for Kennedy was in his second term. That was what he planned to do. What do you think Trump's going to do? He's going to do the exact thing. He's going to pick up where Kennedy wasn't able to finish the job and go attack the Federal Reserve system and notes as being the arbiter of our money supply. That's why he's writing notes to Powell over at the Federal Reserve yesterday, wrote it right on one of the printouts and said, you don't know, you're too late, you're too slow, you're not doing your job. Well, too slow, so what are you going to do? Trump's getting ready to go to war, and that's why he had the fencing put around the Treasury. Figure it out. Now, we will do fine in the markets. In fact, the stock market, probably by the end of the Trump administration, the second term, will be at a fantastical 60 to 70,000 points. I think there's a precise number that it'll be, but I'll say that for another time. With that in mind, and continuing, the momentum will continue after the end of his second term. But there's a lot of drama before we get there. And the dollars, for the time being, are going to get a lot less valuable in the course of it until we switch the value of the dollars from Federal Reserve notes to Treasury notes. So there's a lot of drama in between. If you're trying to avoid the drama and you can't do hypersonic speed trades every day, paying attention, you're right in the thick of it. There's things that we might want to do, but you want to sleep at night, and you gotta use your head a little bit about it. You might want to leave some of that to other people that do this for a living. The sleep at night, true value, it's not going away, and it's going to stay solid and become more solid as we go to silver and gold-backed currency. The value of the existing stuff is going to go up while we bring more out of the ground and go through the minting process, which is a more involved process. It takes some time. So physical versus the promise of more to come, it's going to be more valuable for the time being. So, hold it. And you're not betting the farm if you're getting, real silver or something like that. So there's a big difference there. So I don't want to go into too far. Just
Right.
at the end of the day, if you pray about it, seeking God's wisdom, his guidance, I will tell you this. Let me just give you, a quick thought or two. You go into Proverbs. Wisdom can be found. She's not hiding. She says, if you want to hang around my doorposts and get wisdom from me, you can find me on the path of righteousness and justice. Where those paths cross, that's where you'll find wisdom. So as the country moves to right thinking, and executes just things, for example, is Tina Peters being justly incarcerated? I don't believe so. And so justice in America is to correct that situation. Justice in America is not having people here outside the law. We send them out. If they want to come in, they come in lawfully into the country. We begin to practice justice, lawful action, righteousness, right action, right thinking. And that's where you find wisdom. And then all of the other things that you're trying to do start to fall into place because your actions, well, I want to be really wise in my investments. I want to be really wise. Okay, well, if you start acting justly in your affairs, if you're righteous in your affairs, that's a place where in order to do that, you have to operate wisely. So you practice wisely in those areas, and the wisdom is also available and part of the way you practice in other areas. Does that click for you?
Yeah, no, well, and also, in regards to that, in Malachi 3, it's the only time in the Bible what the Lord said, prove me now and see that if you would give, and I'm not talking about giving to anybody right now, but if you will give, God said, I will open a window of heaven and pour out a blessing that you can't even contain. And so that's one thing is people sow, and start giving to different charities and things that God directs them to. It literally does open a window, and it's the law of the kingdom. So anyway, so listen, Juan, thank you. Where can people, I know Jennifer has a website. What is the website? Let's put that up on the screen, Curtis.
thejennifermac.com. And she has the cookie contest posted there. Today it was the first day, and it'll go to the end of the month. And I hope people will put in their recipes. I'm watering at the mouth, waiting to start getting all those cookies that are going to be cooked for us. And she's got all the rules in there. Just submit one recipe one time, make sure you got it right, and then they will screen all of them. We're looking for healthy stuff and fun new ideas and tasty and all that. And then we'll pick the best of the recipes that look pretty good, cook them up, and we'll kind of taste test, decide what ones we really like the best. And I'm a pretty good cookie connoisseur, so I'll have a pretty heavy vote in this. And but it'll be a blind taste test. I won't get to see any names, nothing, and I'll be able to compare them, and then probably have more than one time that we'll make the batch. As we get closer to the end, I'll have to taste test multiple of them. And so I'm looking forward. It's actually going to be very fun.
Juan, when I see you in July 15th, I hope you're not going to put on 20 pounds at the time.
Well, no, they're not going to cook them until after
I see.
So they'll cook them out there August, September, and like that, and into October. So I'll have to spread it out, and then there'll be other testers too. So I'll only get the ones that everybody's agreed are really the best of the best. We have a high-tech cooking team that's going to follow the instructions precisely, counting it down to the grains of sugar or flour or whatever's in there to get it precise to the gram. And they'll be very, so I'll be, it'll be fun. We're going to have a good time with it. And we've got some fun ideas for the prizes and like that too. They won't be cheese ball prizes, believe me.
Okay. Well, thank you, Juan, for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching. Now is the time. You can go to my website too. We've got different events I'm going to be being at, including I'll be up in San Francisco next week. I'm putting together the 7th Open the Heavens in San Francisco. We found the venue, but we don't have the exact date situated yet. We will let you know. But I will be in San Francisco several times before the event because it's a showdown. And San Francisco, let me tell you, I just found this out, Juan, that actually the movie companies actually came to San Francisco, and after the 1906 earthquake, they actually came down to Los Angeles, and the whole Azusa Street outpouring, which happened on April 9th, 1906, happened right after that earthquake. So God is literally setting the stage for the greatest show on earth, and he's going to show up and show off, and there is a showdown. The devil's going to go down, and it will be the Wild Wild West. And so it's going to be amazing. Hope some of you can come out to Plymouth.
Let me just say this. I will try to make that. And the things that have happened at other of the events that I've attended that you've put on have been amazing. Remember after the event down in Florida, and somebody had a prophetic word, and then literally, you know, I flew home, I think Sunday night, Monday morning, Tuesday morning. Immediately after, I had this, near encounter where I almost got run down, and it fit the description of what the person had prophesied, and it was just
well, I know who it
me.
was. It was Joanna and David Harabedian, and they had a word that God was going to protect you, almost like being in a Faraday cage.
And gold bars, yeah.
And
it was
that
pretty
car
epic.
tried to run you down, and actually another car came in and saved you. I mean, that's
a gold car, yep. And it was very close. I mean, it was pretty stunning. We've talked about that before, but there was, and by the way, Dolores O'Brien, or Delora, I should say, O'Brien. She tried to reach me about 10 minutes after that event occurred. I hadn't talked to her, like that forever. And she called, she left a message, kind of frantic, are you okay? Okay. God told me to stop what I was doing. I'm on a urgent thing. I'm trying on the computer, and God told me to stop immediately and pray for you. And so she stopped and got on her knees, was praying for me. And I was, I hadn't said a thing. I mean, I don't call her all the time. I don't think we called each other, communicated other than seeing each other at the event for months. And it was exactly when that event occurred that she had stopped and been praying. And so, God's unction, God's urging there. And by the way, I just, when I was talking to Lloyd or Jerry a few minutes ago, we've agreed, and he'll announce it tomorrow night, that we'll do a private dinner for a handful of people that want to do it after the Gideon's Army thing. I think I'll do a show with him tomorrow and announce that. So he's working out the details on that, so that if people can't attend the stuff during the week, but they want to come show up for a special private dinner afterwards, he's going to announce that over at Gideon's Army too. So anyway, that's all I got for you. And send those cookie recipes. And go get the 2025 coin. We'll be announcing it here within a few hours.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you, Juan and Jen, and God bless you both. And God bless all of you for watching. This week is very significant. Next year will be the 250-year anniversary of America. It was already the 250-year anniversary of the Army. So we're hitting some crossroads, some markers. And I believe that we're coming into a Jubilee time. 50 is the number of Jubilee, where everything's wiped out from the past. God's going to redeem America, restore the culture, restore, the movie industry for the greatest movies, the greatest music that you've ever seen. That's what he told me, that he's going to give us back our dream. So on this 4th of July week, happy 4th of July, everybody. I believe that we are going to see the greatest show on earth. So thanks for watching. Please, please follow or subscribe. Please share this. If each one shares it with 5 people, really the best advertising is word of mouth, where sharing is caring. So God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. The best is yet to come. God bless.